What you are about to hear is a work of fiction. The people, places, and events depicted in this story are products of the author's imagination or used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual individuals, living or deceased, or to real situations is purely coincidental. These stories may explore themes of crime, injustice, and human suffering. While fictional, they reflect real emotions and difficult truths that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
You think you can steal from me and hide behind lawyers? Watch me turn your own greed against you. Please, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know just how far our stories reach. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Serenity Wellness Center, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors. Priya Singh moved with fluid grace as she arranged yoga mats in perfect rows, her movements reflecting the inner peace she'd cultivated over years of practice. At 40, she possessed the kind of timeless beauty that came from contentment rather than cosmetic-sure dark hair pulled back in a simple bun, her cotton kurta flowing softly as she prepared for the day's first class. The center was her pride and joy, built from nothing over the past 8 years. What had started as a small studio in her apartment had grown into Mumbai's most respected wellness sanctuary, complete with meditation halls, treatment rooms, and a peaceful garden where clients could find respite from the city's chaos. The walls displayed certificates from various yoga institutions, testimonials from grateful students, and photos of Priya teaching workshops across India. "Good morning, Priya," called Anjali Sharma as she entered carrying 2 steaming cups of chai. Anjali had been Priya's closest friend since their teacher training days and now served as the center's senior instructor. Where Priya was serene and measured, Anjali was vibrant and expressive, her laughter often echoing through the halls as she guided students through challenging poses. "Thank you, dear friend," Priya said, accepting the chai gratefully. "I was just thinking about how blessed we are to have built this together." Anjali's smile faltered slightly. "Speaking of building things together, I wanted to talk to you about something. I've been going through the class payment records and some things don't add up." Before Priya could respond, the familiar sound of expensive leather shoes clicking across the floor announced the arrival of Vikram Singh, her ex-husband. Even 6 months after their divorce was finalized, he still had the audacity to walk into her sanctuary as if he owned it. His tailored suit and gold watch spoke of wealth that seemed inconsistent with his modest software consulting business. "Priya, darling," he said with that charming smile that had once made her heart flutter, "we need to discuss some final paperwork regarding the business assets." Priya's jaw tightened. "Everything was settled in the divorce, Vikram. You have no claim to the center." "Of course not," he said smoothly, "but there are some administrative matters. The accountant needs clarification on a few transactions." He pulled out a tablet, showing her a document. Just a signature to confirm these were legitimate business expenses. Anjali stepped closer, her protective instincts activated. "What kind of expenses?" Vikram's smile remained fixed, but his eyes hardened. "Nothing that concerns you, Anjali. This is between my ex-wife and me." Priya studied the document, her trained eye catching several irregularities. "These amounts seem excessive for office supplies and equipment maintenance, and I don't recognize some of these vendor names." "The business has grown, Priya. There are expenses you might not be aware of." His tone carried just a hint of condescension. "Trust me, everything is in order." That word trusted Priya like a physical blow. She'd trusted him once, completely and utterly. Trusted him when he'd sweet-talked his way into helping with the center's finances. Trusted him when he'd insisted on handling the bookkeeping to take pressure off her. Now, looking at his perfectly groomed appearance and expensive accessories, she wondered what other truths she'd been blind to. "I need time to review these properly," she said finally. "I won't sign anything without my mother looking at it first." A flash of irritation crossed Vikram's face. "Your mother? Priya? She's been retired for years. I'm sure she's forgotten more about law than she remembers." Kamala Singh forgets nothing, Anjali interjected sharply, especially when it comes to protecting her daughter. Vikram's smile became strained. Of course, take all the time you need. But remember, the longer this drags on, the more complicated it becomes for everyone involved. After he left, Priya sank into a chair, the documents trembling in her hands. Anjali knelt beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. There's something else, Anjali said gently. I've been comparing our client payment records with the bank deposits. There are discrepancies, Priya, significant ones. Priya closed her eyes, feeling the first cracks in the peaceful world she'd built. How significant? At least 500,000 rupees over the past 6 months. Money that was paid by clients but never made it to our account. The number hit Priya like a meditation bell, reverberating through her consciousness. 500,000 rupees, enough to fund several years of her outreach programs for underprivileged women. Money that was meant to help others find peace and healing. We need to call my mother, Priya said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. Kamala Singh arrived within the hour, her silver hair perfectly styled and her sari pressed to perfection. At 68, she carried herself with the dignity of someone who had spent 30 years fighting for justice in Mumbai's courts. Her sharp eyes missed nothing as she reviewed the documents Vikram had presented. This is sloppy work, she said, adjusting her reading glasses. Any first-year law student could spot these irregularities. The question is whether they're mistakes or intentional deceptions. What do you see? Priya asked. Inflated amounts. Vendor names that don't match registered businesses, and dates that don't align with your actual purchase records. Kamala's expression grew grim. Priya, I think your ex-husband has been embezzling from the center. The words hung in the air like incense smoke, visible but hard to grasp. Priya felt her carefully constructed world shifting beneath her feet. But why? She whispered. He never wanted the center. He always said my work was just playing with stretches and breathing. Because he needed money, Kamala replied. The question is what for? Over the next few days, the 3 women worked together to uncover the truth. Anjali used her connections in the wellness community to verify vendor information, while Kamala pulled strings with former colleagues to investigate Vikram's financial activities. Priya threw herself into meditation and teaching, finding strength in the practice that had always been her foundation. The revelation came during a late-night audit session in the center's back office. Surrounded by ledgers, bank statements, and legal documents, they'd been working for hours when Anjali discovered something that made her gasp. Priya, look at this, she said, pointing to a series of bank transfers. These payments were made to Lotus Enterprises, but we never hired anyone by that name. Kamala leaned over, her lawyer's mind immediately grasping the implications. It's a shell company. Someone created a fake business to funnel money through. But who would? Priya began, then stopped as a horrible possibility occurred to her. Mother, can you trace the registration of Lotus Enterprises? Kamala's fingers flew over her laptop keyboard. Minutes later, her face darkened. It's registered to one Kavya Mehta. The address matches an apartment complex in Bandra. Kavya Mehta, Priya repeated, the name unfamiliar. Who is she? I don't know, Kamala said, but I think it's time we found out. The next morning, Priya stood outside the modest apartment building in Bandra, her mother and Anjali flanking her like warrior goddesses. The building was decent but unremarkable, the kind of place where her stolen money might realistically have gone. Apartment 204, Kamala said, checking her notes. Registered to Kavya Mehta, age 28, occupation listed as consultant. They rode the elevator in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Priya's mind was remarkably clear, as if the meditation practice had prepared her for this moment of truth. When the elevator doors opened on the second floor, they were greeted by the sound of laughter, familiar male laughter that made Priya's stomach clench. Through the slightly open door of apartment 204, they could see into a comfortably furnished living room where Vikram sat on a sofa, his arm around a beautiful young woman with flowing hair and stylish clothes. "The divorce is almost final," Vikram was saying, his voice carrying clearly. "Once I transfer the remaining assets from her little yoga business, we can start fresh. She'll never know what happened." "You're so clever," the woman presumably Kavya, using her own business to fund our new life together. It's almost poetic. Priya felt Anjali's hand squeeze her shoulder as they listened to her ex-husband detail his betrayal, but instead of the rage she expected to feel, a strange calm descended over her. This was the truth she'd been seeking, laid bare in all its ugly simplicity. "I feel sorry for her," Kavya continued. "All that meditation and spiritual talk, and she can't even see what's happening right in front of her." "Priya always was too trusting," Vikram said with a laugh. "It's what made her easy to manipulate. She actually believed I was helping her with the business out of kindness." That was when Priya stepped forward and rang the doorbell. The door opened to reveal Kavya's shocked face, her makeup unable to hide her sudden pallor. Behind her, Vikram leaped to his feet, his confident demeanor crumbling. "Priya," he stammered, "what are you doing here?" "Learning the truth," she replied calmly, "about Lotus Enterprises, about Kavya, about what you've been doing with my money." Kavya recovered first, her chin lifting defiantly. "I don't know what you're talking about. Vikram and I are just friends." "Friends who register fake companies together." Kamala stepped forward, her lawyer's authority filling the doorway. "Friends who embezzle money from yoga studios to fund comfortable apartments?" "You can't prove anything," Vikram said, but his voice lacked conviction. Priya smiled, and for the first time in months, it reached her eyes. "Actually, we can. Every transaction, every forged signature, every fake vendor payment, it's all documented, including the recording I just made of your conversation." She held up her phone, its screen showing an active recording. Amazing what people will admit when they think they're safe. The color drained from Vikram's face. "Priya, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she interrupted. "I understand that you stole from me. I understand that you betrayed my trust. And I understand that you've been laughing at me while living off my work." "We can work this out," he said desperately. "I'll pay it back, I promise. Just don't involve the lawyers." "Too late for that," Kamala said, producing a folder of documents. "I've already filed a complaint with the police. Fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. You'll be hearing from them soon." Kavya stepped forward, her earlier bravado replaced by panic. "Wait, I didn't know it was illegal. Vikram said it was his money." "Save it for the judge," Anjali said sharply. "You knew exactly what you were doing." As they left the apartment building, Priya felt lighter than she had in months. The betrayal still hurt, but the truth had a cleansing quality that no amount of meditation could provide. "What now?" Anjali asked. "Now we plan," Priya said. "I have an idea, but I'll need both of you to help me pull it off." That evening, Priya stood in her center's main hall, surrounded by the peaceful energy she'd worked so hard to create. The space felt different now, not just a business, but a battleground where she would fight for justice. "I want to organize a special retreat," she told her mother and Anjali. "Something focused on truth and healing. I'll invite some of our most influential clients, including a few who work in the legal system." "A retreat?" Anjali looked confused. "Priya, we need to focus on the legal case." "This is part of the legal case," Priya explained. "I've learned that some of the officials handling our divorce proceedings received payments from Vikram. They're compromised, which is why the case has been moving so slowly." Kamala's eyes lit up with understanding. "You want to create an environment where they feel compelled to tell the truth." "Exactly. In my experience, when people find themselves in a truly peaceful space, surrounded by the energy of honesty and reflection, they often reveal more than they intended." Over the next week, Priya carefully planned what she called the Truth and Healing Retreat. She invited a select group of participants, several court clerks who had been involved in her divorce case, a few lawyers from Vikram's firm, and some of the center's most trusted clients who happened to work in Mumbai's legal system. She also extended a special invitation to Judge Raghavan, an honest magistrate whom Kamala had known for years. The judge had been curious about meditation and had expressed interest in visiting the center. The retreat was scheduled for a Saturday morning, designed to feel like a genuine wellness experience rather than a legal proceeding. Priya spent days preparing the space, filling it with flowers, soft lighting, and the gentle sound of water from a small fountain. "Are you sure about this approach?" Anjali asked as they arranged meditation cushions in a circle. "It feels risky." "The direct approach hasn't worked," Priya replied. "Vikram has been ahead of us at every turn because he's been bribing the right people, but corruption thrives in shadows. Bring it into the light and it withers." "My daughter has always been wise beyond her years," Kamala said proudly. "Sometimes the most powerful weapon is the truth, spoken in the right place at the right time." The morning of the retreat, participants arrived looking curious but slightly nervous. Priya greeted each one with genuine warmth, her natural ability to put people at ease working its magic. "Welcome to our Truth and Healing Circle," she said as they settled onto their cushions. "Today we'll be exploring the power of honesty both with ourselves and with others." She began with a simple breathing exercise, her voice soft and hypnotic. "In this space, we leave behind the masks we wear in the world. Here, we are simply human beings, seeking connection and understanding." The morning progressed through various meditation techniques, each designed to lower defenses and encourage openness. Priya watched as the participants' shoulders relaxed, their breathing deepened, and their guard began to drop. "Now," she said, "I'd like us to share something that has been weighing on our hearts, a truth we've been carrying that needs to be spoken." The circle was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, one of the court clerks, a middle-aged man named Rava, cleared his throat. "I have something to say," he began hesitantly. "Something I've been feeling guilty about for months." Priya's heart began to race, but she kept her voice calm. "Please, share what feels right to you." "I work at the family court," Ravi said, his voice growing stronger. "A few months ago, a man came to me with an envelope full of cash. He said he needed some paperwork to be delayed. I knew it was wrong, but I was having financial problems, and the money was more than I make in 3 months. The circle remained silent, but Priya could feel the energy shifting. Truth had a power all its own. "I've been so ashamed," Ravi continued. "I've barely been able to sleep. The man said it was just a civil matter, nothing serious, but I knew I was betraying my oath." "What was the man's name?" asked Judge Raghavan, who had been quietly observing. "Vikram Singh," Ravi said. "He was trying to delay some divorce proceedings involving property division." Another participant, a lawyer named Deepak, suddenly sat up straighter. "Vikram Singh? He approached me too, wanted me to file some bogus motions to tie up his ex-wife's assets." "And me," added another voice. "He paid me to lose some financial documents that were supposed to be submitted to the court." One by one, the truth began to emerge. Vikram had been systematic in his corruption, bribing multiple officials to delay and complicate Priya's divorce proceedings while he systematically looted her business. Judge Raghavan listened with growing anger. "This is a clear case of judicial corruption and obstruction of justice. Every one of these actions is a serious crime." "I want to make this right," Ravi said, tears streaming down his face. "I want to return the money and testify about what happened. I can't live with this guilt anymore." "As do I," said Deepak. "I've hated myself for what I did." The confessions continued for another hour, each person unburdening themselves of their involvement in Vikram's scheme. Priya listened with a mixture of vindication and compassion, understanding that these people had been victims of Vikram's manipulation just as she had. When the formal retreat ended, Judge Raghavan approached Priya privately. Miss Singh, I want you to know that I will ensure this case is referred to the appropriate authorities with the urgency it deserves. What your ex-husband has done is not just theft, it's an assault on the integrity of our legal system. Thank you, Your Honor, Priya said. I just want justice, and I want to ensure this doesn't happen to other women. You'll have both, he promised. The confessions from the retreat provided the foundation for a thorough police investigation. Within days, financial records were seized, and additional evidence began mounting. Over the following 3 months, the legal process unfolded with methodical precision. Armed with testimony from the corrupted officials and the evidence Kamala had gathered, prosecutors built an airtight case against Vikram. By the end of the 2nd month, Priya found herself standing in the courtroom as Judge Raghavan read the verdict. Vikram, flanked by his lawyers, looked nothing like the confident man who had once walked into her center as if he owned it. His expensive suit couldn't hide the defeat in his posture. Mr. Singh, the judge said, you have been found guilty of embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and judicial corruption. The court sentences you to 5 years in prison and orders you to pay full restitution to Miss Priya Singh, including damages and legal fees. The gavel came down with a sound that echoed through Priya's soul like a meditation bell, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Kavya, who had been tried separately, received 2 years probation and was ordered to surrender the apartment and all assets purchased with stolen money, with asset transfer to be completed within 60 days. She had cooperated fully with investigators, providing details about Vikram's methods and other potential victims. Outside the courthouse, Priya stood with her mother and Anjali, breathing in the Mumbai air that somehow seemed cleaner than it had in months. How do you feel? Anjali asked. Lighter, Priya said. Like I've been carrying a heavy weight I didn't even know was there. What will you do with the restitution money? Kamala asked. Priya smiled. I've already decided. Half will go to expanding the center's programs for women in difficult situations. The other half will fund a legal aid clinic for women facing similar betrayals. And the center itself? Anjali asked. We'll be stronger than ever, Priya said. We'll implement new financial safeguards, but more importantly, we'll use this experience to help other women recognize the signs of financial abuse. 6 months after the trial's conclusion, Priya stood in front of a packed meditation hall, preparing to teach a new class she'd developed called Rising from Betrayal. The room was filled with women of all ages, many of whom had heard about her story through news coverage of the case. Betrayal, she began, is one of the most painful experiences we can face. It shakes our faith in others and in ourselves, but it also has the power to transform us if we let it. She looked out at the faces before her, some angry, some sad, all seeking healing. I used to think that trust was about believing in others, she continued, but I've learned that true trust begins with believing in ourselves. When we know our own worth, when we understand our own strength, we become much harder to deceive. Anjali sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Beside her, Kamala took notes, planning to use some of Priya's insights in her new volunteer work with women's legal aid organizations. The lotus, Priya said, grows in muddy water, but it rises above the surface to bloom in the sunlight. Our pain, our betrayal, our struggles, they're not obstacles to our growth. They're the mud from which we can choose to rise. She guided the class through a meditation focused on inner strength and wisdom. As the women breathed together, their shared energy filling the room, Priya felt a profound sense of purpose. After class, a young woman approached her, someone who looked familiar but whom Priya couldn't quite place. Miss Singh, the woman said nervously, my name is Meera. I was one of the people your ex-husband tried to bribe. I work at the registrar's office. Priya's expression remained calm and welcoming. I remember you from the retreat. You chose to tell the truth. I wanted to thank you, Meera said, not just for creating a space where I could confess, but for showing me that there's life after making a terrible mistake. I've been coming to your classes for weeks now, and I feel like I'm finally learning to forgive myself. That's the most important step, Priya said. We cannot change the past, but we can choose how we move forward. As the last students left the center, Priya, Anjali, and Kamala sat in the garden, enjoying the peaceful evening air. I have some news, Kamala announced. Judge Raghavan asked me to join a commission on judicial reform. They want to create better systems for detecting and preventing corruption. That's wonderful, Mother, Priya said. Your experience with my case will help so many others. And I have news too, Anjali added. 3 other yoga centers have asked me to help them audit their finances. Apparently what happened to you wasn't unique. Priya nodded thoughtfully. It's not enough to heal ourselves. We have to help heal the system that allowed this to happen. What about you? Kamala asked. Any new plans? Priya smiled, watching the evening light filter through the leaves of the Bodhi tree she'd planted in the center's garden. I'm thinking about writing a book. The Lotus Reckoning, a guide to recognizing and recovering from financial betrayal. Perfect title, Anjali said. It captures both the struggle and the triumph. That's the point, Priya said. I want women to know that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of their story. It can be the beginning of a stronger, wiser chapter. As the 3 women sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, Priya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also revealed her own strength and the power of truth to transform even the darkest situations. The center was thriving, her relationships were deeper and more authentic, and she had found a new purpose in helping other women navigate similar challenges. Vikram's attempt to destroy her had ultimately made her stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. You know what the most beautiful part of this whole experience has been? Priya said suddenly. What's that? Anjali asked. Learning that sometimes the universe uses our greatest challenges to reveal our greatest gifts. Vikram thought he was stealing from me, but what he actually did was show me who I really am underneath all the trust and naivety. He revealed my warrior self. The lotus that rises from the mud, Kamala said softly. Exactly, Priya said. And now I get to help other women find their own lotus blooms. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Priya felt a deep sense of gratitude not for the betrayal itself, but for the strength it had revealed, the friends it had deepened, and the purpose it had clarified. She had faced her greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious but transformed. The Lotus Reckoning was complete, but the lotus itself would continue to bloom, sharing its beauty and wisdom with all who sought healing and truth, and in the end, that was the most perfect justice of all. Thank you for listening until the end. If you enjoyed the story, please consider leaving us a like. This helps us reach more people.